I'm Nardwuar the Human Serviette, and you are.
I'm Olivia, and this is Abir.
Hi.
Hello, Olivia, and hello, Abir.
Oh my God, we are so excited to meet you.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate that.
Okay. First of all, we did want to ask, who are you?
I'm Nardwuar the Human Serviette from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, coming to Dallas, the Texas Theater.
Yay! This is so exciting.
Mhm.
Uh, is this the longest tour that you've ever done? We know you've done some live shows in the past, but
I have done different sort of like video vaults over the years. I've done some touring also with my band, The Evaporators. So I've gone longer than this, but this is sort of like the beginning of the longest tour recently because it also includes a bit of like ode to the Nardwuar shoe that is coming out. Possibly in in December sometime. There's gonna be a Nardwuar Nike collaboration, believe it or not.
that's so exciting.
You can actually see pictures of it if you Google. Do you have access to Google right now?
Yes.
Mhm.
I know this is radio, and you're listening to Radio UTD. I'm Nardwuar the Human Serviette with Olivia and Abir, and we are live. And I'm asking them to Google, which you can't see right now, some pictures of the Nardwuar shoe. I think if you put Nardwuar SB Duncan, there's some pictures of the shoe. So this, believe it or not, is the kickoff, kind of, sorta. It's not officially released, but for touring it will last, I think, until like December, mid-December.
They
These are
look
so
so
cool.
cool.
Did you discover them? Did you see
Yeah,
them?
Mhm.
So I'm not lying. Hooray! Yes, thank you. Verification.
I love these. I
Mhm.
love your Tema Shanter shoes. This is
Mhm.
so cool.
Yes, and it has a pom pom on the top of my hat. It has a pom pom, and on the shoe it has a pom pom as well. Now there will be no shoes at the Texas Theater. I'm doing the video vault, where I'm gonna like play some of my favorite interviews, talk, and do a question and answer right now, like I'm doing with Olivia and a beer on Radio UTD.
We are so excited to have you at the Texas Theater. So you'll be starting your tour here in Dallas on the 24th. So how do you think being at the Texas Theater is going to compare to the Capilano Room, which you did on November 8th, 1986?
Oh, thanks for taking me back. I appreciate that. That actually was a gig. That's amazing, Abir. Thanks for mentioning that. That was when I played the first time on stage, kind of like the first official gig in the wild. We did a gig at my high school, and I was at the Capilano Room, and it was put in my friend Erwin Ustendi. Yes, it was in 1986, and it was pretty exciting. But I didn't really know how to use the mic, so hopefully my mic technique has improved. And also, it was a really interesting, like, to be able to play in my band, the Evaporators. There will be no band there, but it'll still be a different stage. Although the Texas Theater has a lot of history. I think the Capilano Room was capacity like 200. I think the Texas Theater is much more than that. But it's basically like, yeah, the punk rock attack of my band, the Evaporators, the punk rock attack of me, Nardwuar the Human Serviette as a punk rock journalist. It kind of like ties all together. It's basically like the same thing. But yeah, thanks for remembering that actual gig, the Psycho 60s Garage Festival. And
We
you can actually hear a clip of that if you go to the nerdwar.com website or the evaporators.com and click on live, and you can actually hear a recording of that, which is
I
pretty amazing.
I listened to it. It was great. Was that the first time? When did you start referring to yourself as Nardwuar, the human serviette? Because you did in that recording.
I did sort of, but it was more sort of like I called myself, and then I took the Nardwuar name, kind of like Nardwuar the Human Serviette, to present gigs. Like Nardwuar the Human Serviette presents this gig featuring the Evaporators. That gig wasn't a Nardwuar Presents, that was put on by Erwin, my friend Erwin. But I took the name Nardwuar kind of like as a presentation. It wasn't actually my name. And then I finally got a radio show on CITR Radio in 1987. I joined in 86 gigs and I needed a name and I didn't call myself. So I used the name Nardwuar. So I took the name Nardwuar out there. So I wasn't really using that name as like a radio name until like 87. But then I got a job at CITR Radio. And at CITR, they said you couldn't be called Nardwuar. So I decided to call myself, but I was still calling myself Nardwuar on air. So that's kind of like the genesis of that. Like I took that name, but it was a name out there, like all my friends presenting, Nardwuar the Human Serviette presents a different gig.
Wow. Kind of related to all of this, who is Bill Baker?
Bill Baker, amazing. Thank you for asking that. Bill Baker is part of Mint Records. And Mint Records was one of the record companies that released the Evaporators recordings. And Bill also played in the band The
Orators.
Evaporators. Yes. We had Lisa Marr, who later went on to form the band Cub, joined the Evaporators because I met Lisa at CITR, and Lisa joined on bass, and Lisa brought her boyfriend Bill in to play guitar. So Bill played extra guitar with the Evaporators. And at that point, it was me, Nardwuar the Human Serviette, on vocals and keyboard, hitting one note and screaming, Dave Carswell on guitar, Scott Livingstone on drums, Lisa Marr on bass, and Bill Baker on guitar. Bill and Lisa eventually left the Evaporators. Lisa went on to Cub. Bill went on to form Mint Records and put out tons of records. And Mint Records is still going today. In fact, one of their bands I totally love, Ribbon Skirt, were just nominated for the prestigious Polaris Award in Canada, where they could have won $30,000. They didn't win, but just to be nominated was amazing. Although they would have liked to get the $30,000. But Ribbon Skirt, one of my favorite bands from Canada, from Montreal, on Mint Records, originally founded by Bill Baker and Randy Iwata. And Randy is still involved with Mint Records. Well, he's the head. And he also has help with Elise from Mint Records as well.
Being a famous artist yourself and being the leading man of, Canadian garage surf punk legends, the Evaporators, how does that kind of influence the way that you conduct interviews, knowing that you have that knowledge of the musical process?
Well, like as I was saying, like doing the Evaporators is sort of like a punk rock attack. Being a journalist is like a punk rock attack, and I spend a lot of time at CITR Radio, kind of like radio
UTD.
Yeah. And so when I do an interview, I was like interviewing like a metal band. Like there's a metal band to do an interview. So I would talk to like the metal show and get tips of like what I should ask, etc. So I don't really know a lot myself, but I knew people that knew something. So being around a group of people, that really helped to be exposed to different types of music. I'm sure radio
UTD.
You guys get exposed to all sorts of music, don't you? Like just being around different people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would hear something played in a DJ booth and I'd run in there and go, what the hell is this? Where'd you get this record? I remember another time running to a DJ booth and I was like, what the hell? What's going on? It's like, shut up. It's the Noise Show. I'm broadcasting my heart. The guy was actually broadcasting his heart. Yeah, the Noise Show, radio art. Like I even learned about radio art. So that's what kind of like went all the way through it. Also, like at CITR, they'd have a clippings file before the internet. They'd have a clippings file. So I would go through the clippings file and find information out. And also being on stage, it's like you want to give like everything you got when you're a singer. I don't, wait, a lot of people don't, but I would like to give everything I got on stage. And so when I'm doing an interview, I'd like to do everything and always be thinking about the audience. You always think in the audience when you're playing live, if somebody starts booing or so you're like you respond to them. The same thing when you're doing the interview. When I'm doing an interview, especially on the radio, a lot of people would phone in and say, this is really boring. So I'd react and then try to like make sure I had interesting stuff to ask the people I was interviewing. So the connection of like the live audience from a band, a live audience from a radio. Do many people phone in on radio
UTD?
Or do you
We
get many emails or feedback when you're live on the air?
Yeah, we do. So we're able to leave comments for people. If you're ever in the station Nardwuar, if you ever decide to visit UTD in person, you can log into the comments. The password is pickle juice, which I feel like you'd enjoy. Um, so you can see live comments, and then we actually just added our own phone line to the station. So we're currently training people on it, but in a week or two, even you could call into the station if you wanted to and hear yourself live on air.
And I'm phoning right now with Olivia and Abir. It's me, Nardwuar the Human Serviette on Radio UT.
D.
D.
How do you guys react though when you get a comment? Do you read the comments when you're
I
live?
I do. I know for me personally, when I've DJ'd, usually it's really positive feedback. That's one thing that's really nice. I don't think anyone has said that our music is boring, but it might be so boring that they just don't care to leave a comment. Uh, there's always that possibility. But generally, people are really sweet. It's a lot of, like, what was that song you just played? Or just a lot of, former DJs offering support, listeners offering support. I don't know. Abir, what's your experience?
It's around the same for me, usually positive feedback, though to be fair, my listeners are usually like my parents, so that might be why. But sometimes you get some really like neat tidbits. For example, I play a lot of music from the Persona games, and so I'll get people commenting like, "Oh, I'm a really big fan of the Persona games. Do you like any other games from the same company?" So it's a lot of positive feedback. It's very fun to see what other people think.
And I guess for me, I would always respond to people and I'd be afraid about the comment or about the phone call. So that would always keep me going and try to find new information. I'd run through my questions and the show would be over. So I'm always thinking about that. And you're thinking like I'm doing an interview, a pre-recorded interview. It's not live. Where are the comments coming? In my head, they're coming there. Like stand up straight. Oh, there's a zit on your face. Make sure, I always am aware of what's going on. So it's really important for me to like get the feedback. But I understand now in this day and age, if you get a feedback that's really scary, maybe you should ignore it.
As college DJs ourselves, we were actually wondering how you got started at CITR.
Well, believe it or not, well, or believe it, I had been involved in high school in the student council. I was president of the student council, and one of the first gigs that I put on with my band, the Evaporators, and it was an outdoor festival called Hillstock in honor of Woodstock, and the Evaporators played. So when I got to university, I was like, I'm not gonna be involved in like student um of politics, or I'm not going to be involved in the student council. I'm just going to concentrate and try to be, my dad wanted me to be an engineer. I'm just going to concentrate on that. There's too much work to do extracurricular type stuff. But I got into CITR, and the second I got into UBC, University of British Columbia, Canada, and the second day UB40 and the Fine Young Cannibals were playing at UBC. And my friend said, "Hey, I got an extra ticket. Do you want to go?" I'm like, "Oh, okay. I guess I'll go see Fine Young Cannibals because they had connections to the English beat. And I loved UB40 as well. So I wanted to go to the gig." But he was saying before the gig, this radio station, CITR, which we listened to in high school, is having a party. Do you want to come to their party? And I was like, "Well, okay." So I went to the party and they're playing Black Flag's TV party. I remember that. And I walked in there and they said, there weren't a lot of people there. I said, "Well, are you here to join the station?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just going to go to the UB40 Fine Young Cannibals gig. I don't want to get involved in the station." Come on, just sign up to the station. Here's a membership form. I don't have the money to pay the membership form. Which I think was like $5 at that time. I don't have money to pay. Like, just fill it out and you can pay like in 2 years or 3 years, but just fill it out. I was like, okay, I'll fill it out. So I filled it out that I'll be a member of CITR. And I thought, well, maybe I'll come back sometime during the year. The next day after the UB40 gig, I came into CITR because I felt bad. I signed up for something I didn't pay. So I paid my membership. And as I paid my membership, they said you have to get some training. And I went down the hall of CITR and I went up to a guy and I said, I'm here to get some training. I am supposed to ask for a guy called Steve. And this other guy said, well, just ask for a guy called Steve. He's big and tall. It was a very alternative way of saying that. And the guy that directed me to Steve was Randy Awada from Mint Records, who later formed Mint Records with Bill
Baker.
with Bill Baker, all tied together on Radio UTD. So that's how I ended up joining CITR Radio, just because of UB40 and Finding the Cannibals, my friends saying to go to the party. And I met Randy from Mint Records right off the bat when I walked into CITR Radio. And that was September of 1986, but I didn't get a show until October of 1987.
You mentioned that you were student council president in high school, and that reminds me, your first interview was during your time as student council president, was it not? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you. It was September the 26th, 1985, and I was student council president, and I decided to get this band Poisoned to play our school dance. I talked them down from $1,400 to $13.98 because it looked better. And I decided I'll interview Poisoned. I should interview them. And I thought, well, people were like, why did you want to interview them? Well, because Art from Poisoned had before been in a band called the Young Canadians, and they had thanked our high school in the liner notes for the record. So I wanted to ask him, why did you thank our high school in the liner notes for your Young Canadians record? You're no longer in the Young Canadians, but why did you thank Hillside High School? And so I asked him, he said, well, we thanked everybody else, but that was the first interview that I did. And that was the impetus for doing the first interview. It was like, I was the president. I wanted to get to the bottom of this situation. And Young Canadians were an amazing band from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, as well as Poison were too. So it was an extra special thing for me to be able to talk to him. And yes, you can see that interview on YouTube. And I'm Nardwuar the Human Serviette, speaking to
Olivia
And Abir
from Radio
UTD.
UTD, Dallas. And Fort Worth too, right? Do you broadcast into Fort Worth?
We actually broadcast entirely digitally. At the moment, we're making some moves to fundraise and try to get back on FM.
Well, the wild thing is, I said, like, do you broadcast in Fort Worth? Me forgetting that the internet, you broadcast worldwide, don't you? That's what's so crazy. Like when I was doing my radio show, we had a 50-watt transmitter. So only people in Vancouver could hear CITR radio. But now people can hear you worldwide. So that's amazing. So of course people can hear you in Fort Worth because most people probably listen online anyways. Although I still listen in my car. Although I can't get you guys in my car, but or if I got the proper internet in my car, I could, but I still like the terrestrial radio, just flipping from the dials.
Mhm. So we were kind of wondering, you've done so many interviews over the years. How have you kind of grown and changed as an interviewer?
Well, I think CITR kind of shaped me. Remember I mentioned that like I would approach the metal guy and ask for tips for doing like a metal interview. At first, I was very narrow-minded. I was like, I only want to talk to Jello Biafra of the Dead Kennedys. I only want to do mod punk interviews. Like an example of like how things have changed is I remember once somebody saying, hey, would you like to interview Bjork from the Sugar Cubes? And I was like, are you kidding? The Sugar Cubes? I want to interview the Cramps. So I did an interview with the Cramps. And now looking back, I'm like, I was stupid. I should have interviewed both people. But I was so stuck in my ways. But then eventually, being around CITR, I had my horizons expanded, namely by my friend was like, Adam, who was working at CITR as the CITR engineer, and he said, check out the Ohio Players and their song, The Funky Worm. And I was like, what the? Oh, this is funk. This is amazing. So I was suddenly turned on to it. Oh, Adam also did the Noise show, which I mentioned. And then I would listen to like the folk show, the reggae show, the metal show. There'd be a show that would play lots of indie rock stuff. There'd be a show that would play like some Riot Girl stuff. There'd be a show that would play like Atari Teenage Riot. Do you remember Atari Teenage Riot? They're like a cool electronic band, but I had no idea who they were, but people would play them on their show. So I guess it totally helped me see actually broaden my perspective. But yeah, at the beginning, I was very focused on just like, this, I only like a certain type of music. So that's how things have changed. Now I'll talk to and do anything.
Well, speaking of, I guess, talking to anyone, over the years, you've often re-interviewed artists. Are there any artists currently that you'd like to interview again?
Well, like you mentioned re-interviewing, I guess immediately I think of Cello Biafra and the Dead Kennedys because he was one of the first people I interviewed, and I guess it's fun to keep that going on. So I would like to talk to him again just to continue on the tradition. He actually came out to a video vault that I'm doing at the Texas Theater in San Francisco, and we did a live on stage sort of like impromptu interview. It's not officially released, but I did record it. So I would like to talk to him again. And of course, yeah, I mean, I love to talk to like somebody like Questlove, who's like a hip hop historian. Because like every time you talk to somebody like him, it's like you just put the mic out and let him go. And I love, the edutainment factor. So, those are some people like I just know doing interviews with them. They were like raw, they were like completely like lots of information. I love that. Also, Tyler the Creator. I love to talk to him again because he knows records so much. So I love that sort of. So yeah, there are many people that I like to talk to again, especially people that are really like into like talking so I don't have to do the work. In other words, when I say do the work, I mean like I don't have to, eventually, there's such talkers that just turn over the mic to them. But yeah, everybody has a story, and that's what kind of like my mom taught me is like she would say because she was a journalist too. She like the next door neighbor has just as much of a story as the big celebrity, but it's your job as the interviewer to draw that out. So I can't really say, oh, this person isn't very talkative. Oh, this person sucks. No, I suck for not drawing out that story. An example of that, of me having a preconceived notion, is like when I talked to Pharrell of the Neptunes and NRD, I thought, oh, he's been in the game many years. He's going to be completely jaded and completely quiet. I don't know. I was thinking that. But when I talked to him, I couldn't believe it. And at the end of the interview, he ended up saying, can I do a favor for you? And I was like, can you set me up with Jay-Z? And he did. Also, he said at the very end of the interview, oh, would you like to be in our video? I was like, what the hell? I just didn't It was like, remember they did a video with Lindsay Lohan? It was like, can you be in LA the next day? I could be the next day, but I could have been in a video with Lindsay Lohan. And then a couple years later, Pharrell ended up remembering that interview and ended up hiring me for his company, I Am Other, and he paid me money. So that was incredible. But again, you should never have preconceived notions. I thought, oh, this is not going to go anywhere. So, in other words, I guess, it's fun to have people to talk, but you never know. Every time we do an interview, it's always going to be different.
I do have a quick follow-up about artists that you would interview again. Would one of those artists or groups be Destiny's Child? Because I know that was your shortest interview ever. I believe just a minute.
Yeah, actually, believe it or not, that was a follow-up. Believe it or not, because I interviewed originally Kelly Rowland of Destiny's Child, and then they were shooting the movie Freddy versus Jason in Vancouver, and she had a guest appearance. She was a member of the cast, so I interviewed her there, and then I saw her at I think it was the Tacoma Dome, yes, in 2002, at the very last moment. What's interesting about that thing is I was doing like I was all scheduled to do a full interview with him, but because I went over in other interviews, Destiny's Child was like knocking on the door, but I didn't hear them knocking on the door, so they thought the interview was canceled. I was like, oh, so you got to be aware of your surrounding, what's going on. But that was actually a follow-up. But yes, I would love to talk to Beyonce or Kelly Rowland again. And Kelly Rowland actually remembered me because when she was re-interviewed, I interviewed her for Much Music. They said, "Hey, Kelly, I'm Nardwuar. Nardwuar has like it's very a lot of chest hair," and she was like, "Oh, Nardwuar," like they like it was amazing. I was honored.
Wow.
They made a joke about my chest hair, but she even remembered who I was. So yeah, I'd love to talk to. I'd love, but yeah, and that's Houston. That's Texas. Very connection, right?
This is sort of, I guess, a pivot away from interviews and CITR, but the Evaporators, who we are, I would say, pretty big fans of. You guys haven't put out any new albums since 2016, and we do know that that was an eventful year on your end, but do you think we'll have any, I guess, follow-ups to Ogopogo Punk?
Thanks so much for asking. We did actually do our first evaporator practice in like 5 years. I guess COVID got in the way. So we did have a practice the other night. So we are back and practicing. And I have so many so many song ideas that I could possibly run through. And so I would love to do that. In fact, actually, I'll just show you where I'll just for 1 second. Yes, I guess this makes no sense for the radio listeners, but that was if you want a basic commentary. I went over to the cupboard and I grabbed out the evaporators file, and right there it says, "If you could, do you see what it says right there?"
Oh, plus
Yeah.
set lists.
And
Lyrics.
lyrics. And look at this.
Wow.
And we put out a couple records, but there's more than a couple. So I was looking at this like there is work to be done. There is work to be done for the evaporator. So we did do a practice, and I'd love to go through some of these old lyrics. I'm sure some will be very cringy, but maybe I can update them. Or at least song title ideas. Like a whole bunch of song title ideas. Like we have the song, "I don't need my friends to tell me who my friends are," but I have lots of other songs with that idea. Of like the one word of an idea for a song. So to answer your question, thank you so much for asking about the evaporators. We did do a practice the other day, and I have lots of work to do. So yes, I haven't given up, but I sort of took a bit of a break because I guess of COVID, etc. It kind of slowed everything down. But we were practicing right up to 2019, but then I guess it took 6 years for another practice.
Going back to CITR, we know that you host a yearly Halloween show with a co-host on CITR. At Radio UTD, we've also started our own yearly Halloween tradition where we have, started compiling spooky album recommendations to give to our listeners to post on our blog. And we were wondering if you might have a spooky album recommendation that we could add to that list.
Well, I would say Frankie Stein and the Ghouls. That is one of the legendary records that I play every year. But also on that Halloween special, I also rely a lot of information being provided by my friend Roger Allen, and he always brings in different types of records. And so I kind of refer to him for that. But yeah, for me, it's like for the spooky thing, like for me, I kind of think of like Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And there was actually a 7-inch record put out in the 1980s called Halloweeners. Halloweeners. And it was a great compilation. And one of the bands in there was Tarn Haggis, and they eventually morphosized into the Real Mackenzies, who are on Fat Records. But I love playing like the Halloweeners 7-inch because it's local and it's Halloween. And there's also on there a band called Bags of Dirt. And they were an amazing female band that opened for the Dead Kennedys. So I love the local connection. So it's kind of like, yes, I guess I could get the worldwide ghoul connections or whatever. But for me, it's kind of like Frankie Stein and the Ghouls. I love that. And also the Halloweeners record. I guess I would play something from that, which probably wouldn't mean a lot to somebody else, but it does say Halloweeners on it. But yes, many episodes of the Nardwuar Halloween special, me and Roger Allen presenting that over and over, except this year there will be no Halloween special because I will be on tour, and Roger was very upset. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Roger. I'm sorry. And thank you so much for noticing that. I'll tell Roger too. He'll be so stoked that he noticed that show.
I really enjoyed it. I listened through two years of it, and there were some great tracks on there. Truly a wonderful show to listen to.
Thank you so much. I guess I am so grateful that like Roger showed up at the show with a whole bunch of records, with a whole bunch of information, and just let go. I didn't have to do much work, you know. Don't you love that, Olivia and Abir, when people show up to your show and just go crazy and do everything for you?
Yes.
So, but I'm very honored. And again, you know, I didn't pay Roger anything for doing this. He just did it out of the goodness of heart. That's the great thing about campus community radio is like people do it because they love it. You know, it's not sort of like, it's like a lifestyle choice. Like people will do it. Like people say like, oh, you know, CITR is good to build my resume. Well, I'm not using it to build a resume. It's like people are on there forever. Like rest in peace. Gavin Walker just passed away. He had done a jazz show on CITR, I think, and like from the 70s or the 80s. He just did it because he loved it. He loved the music. Nothing was dumb. Like George Family Man Barrett, he does a rocker show on CITR. He's distantly related to Bob Marley, but he just does it because he loves it. Steve Edge does the folk show because he loves it as well. You know, trimes and creasons, rhymes and well, I can't pronounce today, but anyways, they do an amazing show. Crimes and treasons, they do an amazing show. They've been a long time doing the show. Duncan, who does Duncan's Donuts, he does an amazing show. He's done it for years. Like all these people just do it because they love it.
On the note of, doing radio for the love of it, do you have any advice that you give to somebody who's interested in joining college radio? What's something you would say to them?
I would say join college radio. A lot of people have no idea that it exists, especially nowadays. People are like, oh, I can do a podcast in my basement. Oh, I can get music on Spotify myself. Well, if you join your local campus community radio station, they oftentimes have a server, so you don't have to pay for that. They also provide you with like a podcast. The first podcast that I did was 2006. Before that, it was up to DJs to record their own shows. And once you join CITR radio or once you join campus community radio, you're in control. You're like the producer, you're the operator, you're a writer. You can do whatever you want within the CRTC guidelines in Canada, and in Canada we're a bit more free than in the United States of America for radio regulations. I think there are like 7 words or something you can't say on the radio in the USA, right?
Yeah.
And I won't repeat those words, but we can actually say every word on Canada. We can say it every word that you can't say, but a lot of radio stations, commercial radio stations, don't because they're afraid to lose advertisers. And because we don't have constant advertisers or a lot of ads, we can do whatever we want. And that's what really cool about CITR. So just the freedom to do your show, to be able to go out and do a show. It's amazing for people to hear you, to comment on you. That might be, like, oh, whatever. But to me, it's still a trip because as I mentioned, like to listen to you guys, I was like, oh, can I pick up radio UTD in Fort Worth? I was like, I'm thinking of the old days. It's like nowadays you can be heard worldwide. So join CITR and be heard worldwide. Also, you have access to like a record library, like you guys do about Ogo Pogo Punk. How did you discover that? How did you discover that record?
Initially, it was while I was doing research for you. I think I had kind of, maybe crawled on the outskirts of it. I listened to a lot of like 60s surf rock, or like 80s punk, stuff like that. But it really spoke to me. I really enjoyed it. And being able to listen to the live recordings on your website was amazing.
Oh, thank you so much for taking that. But I guess at CITR, we also have a record library. So, and I did mail Oko Pogo Punk and a lot of previous releases to Radio UTV. I think Radio I think we mailed Ogo Pogo Punk. At least now it's hard because I guess a digital version, a CD version. But that's the thing. Like we would mail the Evaporators record all to all the color stations in Canada, to all the color stations in the States, and that's kind of Mint Records. They were one of the first companies record companies in Vancouver to really go after, the American market and get it out there. And Cub would include Lisa Marr, Bill Baker's ex-girlfriend. They went like #1 on the College Music Journal in the US, all because Randy and Bill mailed out their records. So I guess it's another reason for joining college radio is in the record library, there's lots of good. Is there a record library at
Mhm.
UTD?
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have to look for Ogopogo Punk there.
Uh, and maybe, or are there any Evaporators records? Sometimes I wondered, you mail a record, does it ever make it in the record library?
For us, it
Ah.
definitely does. We
But do check if it isn't Evaporators, check something for Mint Records,
okay.
MINT Records, and they should have mailed something to you. And please get back to me because if they didn't, I'll get them to mail something to you.
We have just a minute left here, but Mint Records actually told us that we should ask you where you got your tartan pants from.
From Randy from Mint Records. Randy Awada, the founder of Mint Records, went to Japan and brought back the tartan pants for me because it would match my tartan hat. I'd seen the tartan pants advertised in a magazine called Doll from Japan, and Randy searched out the pants. It turned out the pants are made in England by Tiger of London, so they must have been imported to Japan. But still, thank you again, Mint Records, for providing the pants that I still wear today. Those 1999, they're really worn down. I've got a new pair, but still, I have the original pair as well.
Well, thank you so much for interviewing with us. It's been literally like this is the biggest honor of my career. Keep on rocking in the free world and do 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 do.
Do do.